안녕하세요. 김유미입니다. Hello, my name is Yumi Kim, and I've noticed there's a swath of videos where people claim there's only
3 kinds of asexuals.
and then usually get the definitions wrong because they weren't there for the inception and need for those terms. This has sharply come to my attention as often allosexuals seem to only have 3 labels of asexuality, but even more heartbreaking where I find that aces themselves are stuck in this rut of 3 without a way to get out. So I made a chart a while back to cover every single asexual that was named, organize them somewhat, and then give a definition of each. One could say it's like an homage to useful charts, but the ace version. 안녕하세요. 김윤미입니다. 파작! 메롱. So, some additional disclaimers up front here. Labels like this are impermanent objects, and they might fit you one day, and they might seem fuzzy or bad the next, or vice versa. That's okay. That is a perfectly fine way to use those labels. In addition, it might not fit you that well because you're from a different culture and you need to do some work under the hood to get to fit well. That's okay too. You might find that more than one fits, or you know that you're ace, but none of the micro labels fit. I have bits of my aceness that don't fit well into this chart and that haven't been defined. In addition, labels and how they are, will change, and can change over time. So these terms are only the terms I found when I made this chart. I will give credit to where I got the definitions and so on, so you can examine it yourself and maybe find where the weaknesses of this chart are currently and possible reasons this is. So first, who am I to talk to you about asexuality anyway? Yeah, I'm your neighborhood-friendly ace spec, more in the gray area, and I'm generally queer. My pronouns are open in English. You'd have to ask about other languages. I'm also aerospec too. Look for that chart too. I did do a paper on asexuality, anthropology, but because of the agreements with the participants, I can't release the ethnography to the public. But I can give you a list of my references from the paper and so on upon request. I'm not all aces, yada yada, you know the drill. I will go over common misconceptions about asexuals as part of this video towards the end, both what asexuals say about themselves and outsiders. To make it more interesting, I'm going to use headcanon so you can see how it interacts in a specific character. Definitions section. Asexuality, limited, conditional, and or no sexual attraction to other people. Logical or no desire to have sex. Some people discover they are asexual through the second one. I've read that some people desire to keep this part of the definition, though this is not all aces. But the line before the or is all aces. By the way, for the aces who think that I'm going to only cover demi for the middle, nope, I got you. Libido. Sexual energy either directed towards oneself or others. Sexual attraction. The ability to see, experience someone, and immediately want to have sex with them. Desire to have sex. The desire to share sexual energy with someone other than oneself. But this doesn't have to be targeted towards a particular person. Aesthetic attraction. The ability to see, experience that someone is pretty, handsome, but this is separate from a desire to have sex with them or to feel sexual attraction to them. This is separate from romantic attraction as well. So, what does aesthetic attraction feel like? Aesthetic attraction for a heterosexual person is when you see, experience someone of the same sex and go, I can understand why, fill in gender. And same-sex attracted people could like that person and have fantasies about them. But if you ask that same person if they want to actually sleep with that person, the answer is no. They don't have those feelings. Likewise, where someone's gay, they might see the sexual attraction for someone of the opposite gender, but they have absolutely no desire to sleep with that person. Some, not all aces, have limited or conditional aesthetic attraction as well, but this is true of some allosexual people, where if they see someone that they think is aesthetic attractive and then learn that person, I don't know, likes to eat their grandmother's puppies, that person aesthetic attraction towards the grandmother's puppy eater goes to zero, as it should. I personally still have issues with the whole, I know he's an antisocial psychopath, but he's so hot. I'm going to ignore that train of thought. I found no allosexual person who is able to tell me why this is a thing. Humans are the weirdest creatures on this planet. Credits. The general design ideas, I kind of lifted a bit of it here, though I attempted to do it better because I have some graphic design training. This does not mean that the original person did it, but, I tried. The definition I tried to best cram in and take mostly from is the LGBTQIA fandom wiki, which you can find in the description, both of them. I avoided asexuality.org since it can be a bit unkind to gray aces and center more towards black stripe aces. Not to mention the reputation of being anti-trans and anti-people of color interns, especially in their early inception. But undoubtedly some sources of info did come from there. For those who don't know the ace spectrum well, I'd recommend Julie Decker's The Invisible Orientation, which has a ton of awards and constantly goes out of stock. I did take an item from there to define and clarify gray aces a bit, to say that they can have primary and secondary sexual orientation. Yes, sexual. We'll cover this later, but one can be absent and the other one present. It depends on the ace that you are. I did shift some of the definition text to squeeze it in. If there are errors, please tell me so I can fix them, preferably within the slotted space. Note, queer platonic relationships aren't strictly an ace thing and often appear in aromantic circles as well as other queer circles. However, it is frequent vocabulary, so I added it to the chart. This chart is free. This video is not grifting and trying to sell you this chart. You can find it on my website for free. I'll have a link in the description. If you want a poster of this chart, you have to do that yourself. But please do not sell this chart as it breaks the copyleft agreements of the flag creators. This chart is not for profit. The top two flags are the asexuality flag in black, gray, white, and purple horizontal stripes, and then the ace-spec flag in violet, lavender, pink, and light pink horizontal stripes. Some people like the asexuality flag because it feels more general, but some associate the asexuality flag with the term umbrella, which might feel to some people as a qualifier of belonging or not belonging, while others don't think the term umbrella is a qualifier at all. More people outside of asexuality automatically associate the asexuality flag with black stripe aces. Asexuality spectrum, or ace-spec for short, refers to the entirety of aceness and serves to remind people that asexuality is a spectrum rather than only black stripe aces. Some people prefer to use the ace-spec definition and flag as it makes their asexuality more nebulous, and no one will automatically assume they are black stripe ace. You can choose which one you prefer. I have a shallower reason for liking the ace-spec flag. I think the ace-spec flag is prettier, which isn't an insult to the original creator of the asexuality flag, but I dislike that shade of purple with that shade of gray. Again, it's your choice and your opinion. queer platonic relationship, a close, non-sexual, non-romantic relationship that is beyond what most would consider to be a friendship. It consists of emotional commitment and prioritization that is typically seen in a romantic relationship. I've also seen a straight version of this. My great grandmother had a male friend that she had no romantic relationship with, and they were just besties. But anytime she needed to do something, she would have to consult with him. So it can kind of be in straight platonic relationship, has kind of an equivalent. I also knew somebody else who had a similar kind of relationship in my family, and so on. Anyway, quo sexual. Being unsure what sexual attraction is, and therefore being unsure if one has experienced it or not. Being unable to understand sexual attraction as a concept or feeling. Disidentifying with the concept of sexual attraction either as a social construct or as something potentially applicable to oneself. Mere sexual experiences multiple ace-spec identities. These identities are static. From here, there are 3 categories that we'll cover. So I'm going to cover allosexual, then we'll go back to black stripe, and then gray asexual. Allosexual experiences sexual attraction. This is somebody who is not considered ace. Then there's black stripe, who has no sexual attraction whatsoever. So we're going to cover the black stripe aces first. We'll start on the left side. Is omnisexual, who has no interest in sexual activities and do not feel sexual attraction under any circumstances nor want to talk about it. Ansexual, lack of interest in all kinds of sexual pleasure, interaction, or attraction, whether it be engaging in it, hearing about others engaging in it. Pretersexual, has not experienced sexual attraction in years, may have experienced attraction in their teen years, 20s, 30s, or even 40s. This could be related to sexual fluidity, neurodivergence, or unknown unspecified reasons. Subtilisexual, has never and will never feel sexual attraction but are okay with talking about sex. Vultusexual, who experience merging or a sense of blending non-sexual attractions, thus feel confusion over romantic attraction. Nope sexual, a lack of sexual attraction as a type of sexual orientation. They interpret it to be the absence of a sexual orientation. Anattractional, feels no attraction whatsoever. This includes feeling no physical attraction, emotional attraction, and tertiary attraction of any type. Mirinsexual, experiences aesthetic sexual attraction but do not experience sexual desire. Nemosexual, not entirely certain over whether they will experience sexual attraction in the future but have not experienced sexual attraction. Cupiosexual, does not experience sexual attraction but still desires, likes a sexual relationship. Cupiosexuals are commonly sex favorable, but they do not have to be. So cupiosexual is kind of like kissing the edge of gray sexual. Gray sexual, gray asexual, gray ace. Experiences sexual attraction very rarely or with low intensity or conditionally. May have secondary sexual orientation, such as gay, lesbian, pan, bi, het, etc. This is the position between black stripe ace and allosexual slash Z-sexual. So you could say hat has no sexual attraction, experiences sexual attraction, gray sexual is in between. And no, they cannot help that it's conditional. No, it's not something that turn on and off. And a lot of the crossover from hatred on pan and bi seems to also apply to gray sexuals. So let's move on. The organization on this part of the chart gets a little bit murky for a lot of complicated history ace related reasons, which I can't cover right now. But I'm sorry if I got it wrong, and I tried my best. Conditional. The conditional side does not have a flag or an official term, so I had to make it up, and hopefully somebody will come up with a flag and a term and a better definition. This means that it's conditional on whether they do or don't feel sexual attraction. This splits into the left side, which says belosexual, has interest in certain sexual actions, the aesthetic of sexual relationships and or aspects of sexual relationships, but does not feel sexual attraction and does not want a sexual relationship. So examples of this under belosexual, I put the micro labels agiosexual, experiences a disconnect between themselves and the subject of arousal, may experience sexual fantasies, enjoy and other sexual content or pleasure themselves, but they may generally feel little to no sexual attraction and typically do not desire to involve themselves in relations with other individuals. Fictosexual exclusively experiences sexual attraction towards fictional characters, a general type of fictional characters, or whose sexuality is influenced by fictional characters. So we're going to jump to the other side of conditional, which says towards other real world people. So like that's a really rough definition. Again, there's no flag. There's no official term. If you are part of this section, like you're one of the sub-labels, you can make one and knock yourself out. So there are demisexual, attracted to those they are deeply connected with. So this can be such things as emotional attraction, and for some demisexuals, they also say that it's emotional attraction and interest. Though some people want to kick them out over that, but whatever. I am not the ace police. So, reciprosexual does not experience sexual attraction unless they know the other individual is sexually attracted to them first. You could say that it's Mr. Tilney, Mr. Henry Tilney, but how many of you have read Northanger Abbey? Anyway, requiosexual, limited to no sexual attraction, interest, or activity due to emotional exhaustion, associated often with neurodiversity and disability. Coiosexual will only feel sexual attraction to someone if they develop that feeling upon meeting them the first time. So then we're going to jump over closer to allosexual. The next section is towards other real world people lacking secondary sexual attraction. This includes phrasexual, attracted to those they are not deeply connected with, lose that attraction as they get to know the individual. orchid-sexual, has sexual attraction but not desiring a sexual relationship. Lithosexual may experience sexual attraction but does not want it reciprocated. Mall-sexual orientation is fluid and is best described as weak and or soft. So we're going to jump down, and ace flux kind of may go all the way down to black stripe ace, and they might flux all the way back up to allosexual or zsexual. So ace flux kind of goes back and forth and different times. It can be a day, a week, a month, or during the day. So there's ace spike, usually feels no sexual attraction, but occasionally has rare, sudden, and intense spikes of sexual attraction for a short amount of time before returning to one's normal amount of asexuality. Asexual, people who don't feel sexual attraction but feel sexual desire only in relation to non-real or partially specific people, but not around real people. Ace jump, normally allosexual, but occasionally experiences rare, sudden, and intense spikes of asexuality for a short amount of time before returning just as suddenly to one's normal amount of allosexuality. So from here, there's sexual aspect. Technically, this isn't always associated with asexuality, but I thought it was good to connect, to think about it. Lambanosexual, sexual acts for self but not other individuals. This is a spectrum, so it can go all the way to sexual acts for other individuals but not self. It can go all the way to plagiosexual, sexual acts for other individuals but not self. So in, say, gay or lesbian terms, it might be top versus bottom. But then you can have everything in between. So, sex stance spec goes from sex repulsed, does not want to do anything with sex, which is also called apothesexual, to sex averse, sex ambivalent, which is like meh, either the sex indifferent, like could hear about it, could take it or leave it, and then sex favorable, who would like to have relations. Okay. So touch stance spec. There are a bunch of aces that are touch repulsed. So, and all the way up to favorable. So if you want to know the ace person and you're trying to get in a relationship, it's good to ask. Not everybody is one category. A lot of people think it's all through the left and nothing at all through anything else. But that's a bad assumption. And likewise, it's bad to assume that it's everything to the right. Just ask. Anyway, there's touch repulsed, touch adverse, touch ambivalent, touch indifferent, and touch favorable. There are definitions of aceness that aren't really defined on this chart. A few of them I missed because new terms were invented after I made the chart, and it's really hard to cram them in 2 days without losing sleep, and I apologize. I will update the chart eventually. So I'll give some examples that are not aces who feel sexual attraction only by shared interest or to get to know someone intellectually. Since this is often kicked out of demi, this is something to consider. used to be sapiosexual until it was made ableist and then taken away from the ace community. So now it's just an ableist term and a fancy way to say that you are attracted to intellectually abled people. Please do not use this term. Aces who cannot feel connection to people through screens. I found only one other ace who is like this. I personally find online dating daunting because in order to feel sexual attraction, I often pick up on people's subtle body language of the person when they are in front of me. And people keep telling me, date online, date online. I cannot judge the person without them in front of me. I'm sorry. They just feel too distant. Anyway, aces who cannot feel sexual attraction to fictional characters or are very limited in their ability to feel attraction or to feel sexual attraction to fictional characters. This is not a slam against fictosexuals. I just want an opposite term. So that does not cover all terms, and that's not meant to cover all terms, but I thought I would give some examples so you can kind of think about it. If you don't find yourself on this chart under the micro labels for a variety of reasons, don't panic. It doesn't mean you're not ace. It means the ace community kind of felt bitter after allosexuals tried to take away our terms for their own use in order to sometimes undercut us. So new terms were often not invented, or they were simply not enough aces to support the groundswell to create a new flag with the definition and term. You are still allowed to use the wider flag terms if you fit underneath those definitions. As I said, this is imperfect and still subject to change. Objection from fellow aces about the chart. Semi-rant. I'm going to go on a tangent here, which is going to connect back later. In almost every group I belong to, I'm an outlier. I am not mainstream. I'm a red shirt. I know the rush of finding a group you didn't know existed and then feeling a sudden sense of belonging you want. No, you need everyone in the group to be
Just like you.
I admit I've done this a few times myself, not realizing the damage it was causing to others around me. To preface, I hate hate. This is different from hating a person. I attack ideas, not the people. When I thought I was ace, I was kicked out by other aces because the truth was I was gray ace and they were black stripe category of aces. Most of them were aerospec too. Because they kicked me out, I couldn't categorize my aceness and ended up nomadic and confused and feeling very, very lost because I didn't know how to describe my feelings. When gray ace and demi were made available, I suddenly felt validated. I know the importance of sub and micro labels to know that you do belong to a larger community. Don't you know asexuality is...
Only no sexual attraction and be damned to other aces.
You are not all aces. Just as I am not all non-binary, not all adoptees, not all Koreans, etc. I live with that and even revel in it from time to time. Diversity is cool. Robbing people of their micro-labels because it doesn't fit you is problematic. Aphobia and acephobia is hard enough that we don't need to be doing it to each other. I do get the need for belonging to the extreme that you want to erase the so-called fringes of your experience to feel superior in your position, but it doesn't help the community if people can't find out if they belong to the community in the first place. So let me pull out my anthropology degree concentrated in systems here and point something out. In anthropology, there is something in social justice which is called marked and unmarked in terms. This allows a dominant group to say they are the real ones. We try to use either all unmarked terms, such as she was an astronaut, or mark all of the terms. This prevents infighting and kicking out and discrimination within the group. One can think of this in smaller terms like woman versus man, which for the anti-trans people out there, woman means wife man. Female, by the way, means she who suckles. Neither term refers to what is between their legs. Etymology is cool. So, men are the real ones and everyone else are the pretenders and not really human. But this also shows up in other social justice fields like marking black engineers, women astronauts, but failing to mark men. What do you mean I'm a white person? I'm just a person. What do you mean Black Lives Matter? What about white lives? You have no idea how many times I've heard this, but they are 100% happy to mark all of the people of color by ethnicity. Brief history lesson here. Originally, asexual was not the default term where it meant no sexual attraction. The original term was actually marked so that there was room for unmarked terms. So the marked term was asexual, but people didn't like that on asexuality.org, so it was overturned. No sexual attraction became unmarked. Later, gray ace came out, and that one was marked. This means that there was a built-in prejudice in the system. This is because the head of asexuality.org is in the black stripe, putting in heavy quotes, category, not the gray ace category. So for him, the default, quotes again, are black stripe ace. To be fair to him, everyone wants to think that they are the default, and then they are shocked to find out that they are not. So when you make a new category, you want to be a default of that one too, and then you are shocked that you find out that you are not. This might also explain why he absolutely refuses to put the full definition on asexuality.org's front page, which, as I have explained, is no limited or conditional sexual attraction. That is not hard to understand, but he thinks that allosexuals are just not smart enough to figure it out from there, even if he were to explain it. Which, by the way, is not slander because I have an email from them saying so. David J., just fix it. It's not that hard. While you're at it, maybe you could fix your reputation of hating trans, non-binary, people of color, and neurodivergent people, especially autistic. Just saying. Thank you. Another asexual history lesson here. Anthony Bogart is the quote-unquote premier expert on asexuality. He is not ace, by the way. And he was the one that went around and tried to spread that, oh, but asexuals like to masturbate. And then he got really upset when Julie Decker, in her book about asexuality, it's called The Invisible Orientation. I said it at the top. Julie Decker, who is ace, by the way, refused to cite him in her book that included trans aces and non-binary aces, while he, in his book about gray aces, said that trans was a disease. Oh my God. Maybe this is why she didn't cite you. Have you gotten that clue yet? Other quote-unquote hits from him is trying to use bioessentialism for asexuality and thinking that there must be a genetic cause. Bioessentialism, by the way, came from eugenics. He tried to say that all aces masturbate. This, by the way, is not true because he didn't check. Guess who checked? Julie Decker actually checked. Did he actually read the book before he got enraged? He also invented a bunch of scientific terms, which he said that all aces have paraphilia, wait for it, with themselves. Then gave it a fancy scientific term. Then said that all aces agree with him, which is not true, because it didn't turn out that a lot of aces liked the idea that they had a paraphilia with themselves. But then he says that everybody in the ace community agrees, and that's not true either. And before anybody says that I'm making jump assumptions, I read all of his papers and all of the connecting papers for a project that I did for my anthropology degree. And I'm not saying that he can't change his mind, but dude, do you really have to connect things back to eugenics? Social sciences have gotten rid of the whole bioessentialism in the past, say, about 20 years or so. 30 years if you're being generous, maybe 40. You know, because the head of World War II was not cool. The point is that both of these people in particular contributed to the unmarked versus marked terms, rather than thinking on the broader spectrum scale of making them either both marked or unmarked. And I'm not saying that they really thought that deeply or meant harm in doing this, but this is the impact and the result. I'm not saying that these are terrible people in other spaces, or that they can't change their mind, or maybe have changed their mind in the interim. Humans are changing objects. But they could start by denouncing anti-trans hate and turfism on some scale. Just say it. Policing aceness doesn't set a very good example to allosexuals, does it? I get that some people who feel no sexual attraction don't like the term black stripe ace, even though people who feel no sexual attraction invented the term on asexuality.org and thought it was a good term and then put it to a vote. If you want to end acephobia, you need to combat it in yourself first and let other types of aces, exist. So, if you really hate the microlabel of black stripe, put it to another vote. Make another flag and then figure it out and I'll change the chart. But you can go around. I am all aces. Nah. Microlabels are all stupid and we've gone too far. Chill. It won't take anything away from you to have other kinds of aces and microlabels exist. Choose the ones you want. Let everyone else navigate them as they like. Look, aces. With the entire spectrum, we are 1% of the population. We need all of the help we can get to fight acephobia. Do you want to make it 0.001%? Please. No, I beg you. Trauma is not an excuse for abuse, especially of other people of your ilk. Turn your trauma into understanding at the very least. You don't have to like it to understand it. You need to chill and stop trying to say you are the entire label. I'm also not all aces, but I also work hard to accept and learn from other aces who are not like me by mentioning they also exist when people get curious. Invalidation and making the community smaller is not the way to go. Light note before the next section. I know Japanese. Nihongo wakarimasu ka? Skoshi desu yo ne. As such, I pronounce anime as a-ni-me, which comes from the French le dessin animé. I speak a little French too, which comes from the Latin anima. Manga by Frederick Schultz said that the term anime was likely an import from the French by Tezuka Asumu, though sometimes this is under dispute. I will use this pronunciation over the Canadian dubbers version of anime, which is anime. Also use manga, not manga. This is not showing off, but even if I'm the last English speaker to use the Japanese influence on the French pronunciation, I'll do it. And you might hate me, but I also say croissant kimbap, and generally if I learn a language, I lightly code switch. That said, I haven't mastered a Tokyo-influenced accent on Mandarin, so won't be using Mandarin tones. Do as you like. Just don't chase me for actually knowing Japanese and the history of where the Americanized, or in this case, Canadianized, pronunciation comes from. Drum roll, please. My headcanon ace is Mau Mau from Apothecary Tales. I'm going to go over the major objections on the idea that she can't be ace. First with the assumption about aces that's wrong, and then correct it. Misconception. People in the past did not go through puberty until they were 16. Correct assumption. People in the past did go through puberty at the same times we do. Granted, this is correcting history more than asexuality, but late puberty can be an indicator of asexuality, though this isn't always the case. Reference for this is in the description. Misconception. Asexuality has to do with emotional expression. Correct assumption. Asexuality is independent of emotional expression. Emotional intelligence and expression are not indicators for asexuality. Just like saying the only way you can have same-sex attraction is to be a flaming gay. I would seriously workshop the idea that asexuality has anything to do with the emotional expression. I think aces overcorrected in this area, since it's also a misconception that aces are cold and have no feelings. Just because one does not feel sexual attraction does not mean they are a cold-hearted monster. But likewise, someone could be less emotionally expressive and still be ace. Misconception. Demisexuals are not aspec. Correct assumption. Demisexuals are aspec. See the chart. They come under the gray part of the spectrum. They are part of the conditional part of asexuality. Misconception. Asians can't be asexual. Correct assumption. Asians can be asexual. This is just racist. I saw this in relation to Mau Mau. Here I am, someone who is Asian and aspec. Sexual orientation is independent of culture, but the expression may be influenced by culture. Aspec Asians do exist. The complete argument was something like, Asians are just emotionally repressed. And no, I've met Asians, like there's a whole continent there, who are really emotionally expressive, and likewise, there are ones who aren't. Extroverted Asians exist. Drop the racism. Misconception. Asians, Japanese, don't know about asexuality. Correct assumption. Japanese do know about asexuality. I admit I got frustrated with asking for Korean dramas with asexuality. Not listing those dramas because I'm not keen on creating a hate train. So I asked someone Japanese to do it. There's a method to do this. And so there's a Japanese drama called Koi Senu Futari, which covers mostly black stripe aces and the spectrum there. I love that drama. By the way, the term asexuality is in katakana. Misconception. All aces don't want to have sex or do any sexual activity. Correct assumption. Some aces want to have sex. Desire to have sex, libido, and sexual attraction are different things. Libido is sexual energy in general. Desire to have sex is more like how you want to share that sexual energy, and sexual attraction is the ability to experience someone else and think that you want to share your sexual energy with them. Some aces are not sex repulsed. They can have different sex stances. Misconception. One cannot become ace if one has experienced trauma. Correct assumption. One can be ace because they've experienced trauma. See the chart above on the black stripe part of the spectrum. We got you. You can lose all sexual attraction due to trauma. Humans are strange creatures. Let it be. I have no issue if you are this person and you discover this is true. This, by the way, is independent of having no libido. Separate things. Misconception. Abused people in general cannot be ace. Correct assumption. Regardless of status of being abused, one can be ace. There is no condition where you are abused, don't feel sexual attraction, therefore you cannot be ace. Absolutely, you can be ace. I've seen and met people who have gone through various types of abuse that do have sexual attraction, and likewise people who are ace that have no abuse history, and likewise those who have abuse history. Being asexual is independent of history of abuse. Misconception. Aesthetic attraction and sexual attraction are the same thing. Correct assumption. Aesthetic attraction and sexual attraction are different things. Some aces do have limited aesthetic attraction too. As outlined, aesthetic attraction is the ability to experience someone and recognize that they might be attractive to other people, but sexual attraction is the ability to experience other people, but also want to have sex with them. Misconception. Gray aces only feel sexual attraction sometimes like an on-off switch. Correct assumption. Gray aces are part of the conditional and limited part of the ace spectrum. Gray aces are between black stripe aces and allo Z-sexuals. See the chart. Much like bi-pan people exist as part of the sexual attraction to certain gender spectrum, and non-binary people are in the middle of the gender spectrum. Therefore, the expression of this limited and or conditional may vary in gray aces. If you wish to become a partner of a gray ace, the best way is to ask how they are gray ace rather than assume. Misconception. If the character is ace, they can't be also homosexual or pansexual or bisexual. Aces only can feel romantic attraction. Correct assumption. Since there are people who feel sexual attraction only in the primary or only in the secondary attraction model, when people do feel that sexual attraction, they may have a gender preference or orientation. Therefore, Mao Mao could be heterosexual since she's maybe demisexual. Bonus round misconception. Blind people are automatically ace. Correct assumption. Blind people and low vision people use other things for sexual attraction. I hope I don't have to explain this one. There are more ways to be sexually attracted to people than sight. There are people who say things like Mao Mao isn't attracted to Jinshi because she knows he's a eunuch, but she has no reaction to him when passing him in a crowd. She remarks she sees how other people could be attracted to him, which is aesthetic attraction, and has no reaction to a guy who is shirtless and analyzes him coldly. She does show aesthetic attraction towards men and women, but confesses she's never been in love or felt attraction before. This throws her very firmly into asexuality, and I would say aromanticism too. As cited earlier, even the coldest and most calculating of people experience sexual attraction. Only aces tend to have that, not available, so I'm not attracted to that person type of reaction. As the anime and light novel shows, the other girls in the palace don't care if he's supposed to be a eunuch. That's an allosexual reaction. I know this person is, but I still feel attraction towards them. Only Mao Mao doesn't fall over him. Other girls in the light novel and anime also have experienced intense trauma and still feel and present with sexual attraction towards Jinshi. Some people say in the later novels, Mao Mao does feel sexual attraction towards Jinshi, pointing to chapter 19 of the light novel. Equally, Jinshi gets so frustrated with Mao Mao for not returning his feelings when she deliberately suggests he marry consort Rishu that he chokes her in volume 5. This makes me want to throw him off the ship, and I don't care anymore. Nothing about threatening or choking without consent is romantic. Oh, Kami-sama, he knows how to control it. She won't die, and she trusts him. Isn't that romantic? Not that he has absolute power over her as her boss, and he's abusing it, and SH, SA, and SVing her. Let's clap together. BDSM is about consent. Exerting control is not consent. It's not kinky. It's abuse. Do I have to throw up Neil Gaiman here as an example? Just because it backfires in Volume 6 does not make it somehow better he did it in the first place. It makes Jinshi no better than the previous emperor. The author is rumored to hate the ship of Jinshi and Mao Mao as well, so don't hold your breath. Pun may be intended. Despite this, she might be demisexual, meaning once she gets to know Jinshi better, his background, and so on, she forms an emotional bond with him, which then leads to sexual attraction. I suppose the bigger issue is Mao Mao's insistence she's aromantic and can't return Jinshi's feelings, but let's cover that in the next video. Conclusion. I know this is likely to be demonetized because the word sex is everywhere, except this can't be demonetized because I don't have a following. So if you want to split the algorithm, which is not the same as Gen AI, you can like and subscribe. So I'll actually get around to the aromantic chart, which is also up on my website. No crowns for orange dictators? I'm not joking.